David Carradine sits across from a stranger in an empty Los Angeles diner at 2 a.m., watching tears fall into a cup of tea. What he says in the next 3 minutes doesn't just end a confrontation, it saves a life. Los Angeles, November 1976, Tuesday night, 2:17 a.m., Mel's Diner on Sunset Boulevard. The kind of 24-hour place that collects broken dreams and desperate people when the rest of the city sleeps. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting everything in harsh white light. The coffee tastes like it's been sitting since yesterday. The air smells like grease and disappointment. David Carradine sits in a corner booth, still wearing the simple clothes from his evening meditation session. Black cotton shirt, worn jeans, sandals. No jewelry, no flash. Nothing that screams television star. He's reading a book on Taoism. Sipping green tea he brought in his own thermos, because this place doesn't serve anything that won't kill your soul. He's here because he can't sleep. Again. Fame from Kung Fu should feel good, should feel like victory, but mostly it feels like wearing someone else's skin. Playing a half-Chinese character when he's not Chinese. Teaching Eastern philosophy through Hollywood scripts when he's still learning it himself. The letters from angry viewers pile up daily. Cultural appropriator. Fake martial artist. Pretty boy playing dress-up. They're not entirely wrong. That's what keeps him awake. The diner door opens hard. Too hard. The bell above it doesn't ring. It screams. A young man stumbles in. Mid-20s, dark hair, wearing a leather jacket that's trying too hard to look tough. His eyes are red, not from crying, from drinking. His movements have that loose, dangerous quality of someone who's had just enough alcohol to make terrible decisions feel reasonable. He scans the empty diner, spots Carradine. His face changes, recognition, then something uglier. The young man walks over, not steady, not controlled, but with purpose. He stops next to Carradine's table, close enough that Carradine can smell the whiskey, the anger, the desperation. "You're him," the young man says. His voice is thick, slurred, but clear enough. "You're David Carradine, the Kung Fu guy." Carradine looks up from his book, doesn't close it, doesn't move defensively, just meets the young man's eyes with quiet attention. "I am." "You son of a bitch!" The words hang in the diner air like smoke. The waitress behind the counter looks up from her magazine, assessing whether she needs to call someone. The cook in the back keeps cooking, pretending he doesn't hear anything. Carradine sets his book down carefully. "Do you want to sit?" The question catches the young man off guard. He was expecting defensiveness, maybe fear, maybe celebrity attitude. He wasn't expecting an invitation. "What?" "You seem upset. Sometimes it helps to sit down and figure out why." The young man's face flushes red. "Don't give me that Zen bullshit. You don't know anything about being upset. You don't know anything about anything." Carradine gestures to the empty seat across from him. "Maybe not, but I know something about being angry at the wrong person. Something in the tone, something in the complete absence of threat or judgment makes the young man hesitate. He looks around the empty diner, realizes he's making a scene for an audience of nobody, feels the alcohol fog in his head, shifting. He sits down. Hard. The vinyl booth squeaks. "You took my job," he says immediately. "You took my fucking job." "What job?" "Kung Fu. I auditioned for that show. 3 times. Made it to the final callbacks. They said I was perfect, said I understood the character, said I had the right energy, the right look, everything." His voice cracks slightly. "Then they gave it to you." Carradine nods slowly. This isn't news to him. He knows the history, knows about Bruce Lee creating the concept and being passed over, knows about the other actors who came close, but he's never sat across from one of them at 2 a.m. in a diner, watching dreams die in real time. "What's your name?" Danny Chen." The name hits Carradine like a physical blow. Chen. Chinese. This young man isn't just another actor who lost a role. He's someone who could have played the character authentically, someone who wouldn't have to deal with the cultural appropriation letters, someone who belonged in that world in ways Carradine never would. "Danny," Carradine says quietly, "you're right." Danny's eyes widen. He was expecting denial, excuses, Hollywood bullshit about how these things work. "You should have gotten that role. You would have been better at it than me. More authentic, more honest, less complicated." Danny stares at him. "Then why?" "Because television executives in 1972 were afraid that American audiences wouldn't accept an Asian actor as a leading man, because they thought I was safer. Because the system is broken, and I benefited from it being broken." The honesty hangs between them like a confession. Danny's anger wavers, not disappearing, but shifting into something more complex. "So why didn't you turn it down?" Carradine is quiet for a long moment. He looks down at his tea, at his book, at his hands that have spent 4 years pretending to know kung fu for cameras. "Because I'm selfish. Because I wanted the work. Because I told myself I could honor the philosophy, even if I couldn't embody the culture." He looks back up at Danny. "Because I was wrong about a lot of things." Danny wasn't expecting this, wasn't expecting honesty, wasn't expecting vulnerability. He came here drunk and angry, looking for a fight, looking for someone to blame for everything wrong in his life. Instead, he's sitting across from someone admitting fault, taking responsibility, refusing to defend himself. It's disarming in a way that makes Danny angrier and more confused. "You don't get to do that," Danny says, his voice rising again. "You don't get to just admit you're wrong and make it okay. That was my shot. My one fucking shot. Do you know how many roles I've lost because I'm too ethnic for mainstream parts, but not ethnic enough for the few Asian roles that exist?" "No," Carradine says simply, "but I'd like to." "What?" "I'd like to know. I'd like to understand what that feels like, because I've never had to carry that." Danny stares at him, caught between wanting to explain and wanting to stay angry. The anger is easier. Anger has energy, has direction, has a target. Understanding is harder, more complicated, less satisfying. But something in Carradine's face, some genuine curiosity mixed with shame, makes Danny keep talking. "You want to know what it feels like? It feels like being invisible unless you're playing a stereotype. It feels like being too much of something and not enough of something else, every single day. It feels like watching someone who looks nothing like you play a character that should represent your culture, and watching audiences praise them for it." Carradine nods, listening, not defending. "And the worst part," Danny continues, his voice getting quieter, more raw, "is that you're good at it. You actually understand the philosophy. You respect it, which makes it harder to hate you, which makes me hate myself for not being able to hate you." The booth goes silent. The fluorescent lights buzz. The cook flips something on the griddle. The waitress turns a page. Then Carradine does something unexpected. He reaches into his jacket, pulls out a business card, writes something on the back, and slides it across the table. "What's this?" "My agent's number. On the back is my home number." Carradine's voice is steady, serious. "I can't give you my job. I can't undo the system that gave it to me. But I can introduce you to people who make decisions. I can recommend you for things. I can use whatever small amount of influence I have to help." Danny looks at the card like it might be a trick. "Why?" "Because you're right. Because I owe it to the character, to the philosophy, to the culture I've been representing. Because maybe the best thing I can do with this opportunity is help it become less necessary." Danny's hands shake as he picks up the card. Not from alcohol now, from something else. Hope, maybe, or fear of hope. "This could be bullshit," Danny says. You could just be saying this to get me to leave you alone. It could be, Carradine agrees, but it's not. They sit in silence for a moment. Danny stares at the card. Carradine drinks his tea. Then Danny asks the question he's been afraid to ask, the one that's been eating at him for 4 years. Do you think I'll ever get another shot? A real one? Carradine considers this seriously. He doesn't give false hope or empty encouragement, just truth as he sees it. The industry is changing, slowly, too slowly, but it's changing. When your shot comes, and I think it will, you'll be ready for it in ways I never was. You understand what the role means beyond just the acting. That matters. Danny nods, not entirely convinced, but holding on to something. Can I ask you something? Danny says. How do you deal with it? With knowing you're playing someone you're not? Carradine sets down his teacup. This is the question that keeps him awake, the one he meditates on every night, the one that brought him to this diner. I study, every day. I read, I meditate, I train with people who actually know these traditions. Not because it makes me authentic, nothing can do that, but because it makes me less of a fraud. Because if I'm going to represent something sacred, the least I can do is respect it enough to learn what it really means. He pauses, looks directly at Danny. And I remember that it's not my story I'm telling. It's a story about wisdom, about peace, about finding balance. If I can tell that story honestly, even from the wrong face, maybe it still has value. Danny is quiet for a long time. When he speaks, his voice is different, cleaner. I've been so angry for so long, it's eating me up. Anger makes sense. Your anger is justified. But carrying it alone doesn't change anything. So what do I do with it? Carradine smiles slightly. Use it. Channel it into being so undeniably good that they can't ignore you. Make them regret passing you over by becoming someone they desperately want to work with. The waitress approaches their table. You boys want anything else? Carradine looks at Danny. Coffee? Yeah, coffee sounds good. As the waitress walks away, Danny looks at the business card again. If this is real, if you actually help me, why? What do you get out of it? Carradine thinks about this. Maybe I get to sleep at night, knowing I did something right. Maybe I get to feel like this role, this accident of casting, led to something good instead of just more guilt. Danny nods. And if I become successful, if I get roles, I'll probably say things about Kung Fu that aren't very nice. You should. The show deserves criticism. I deserve criticism. Just remember to criticize the system, not just the symptom. They drink coffee as the sky starts to lighten outside. They talk about acting, about dreams, about the weight of representing things you don't fully understand. Danny's anger doesn't disappear, but it transforms into something more useful, more focused. At sunrise, they exchange handshakes and phone numbers. Danny walks out of the diner standing straighter, carrying possibility instead of just rage. 3 weeks later, Carradine calls his agent. Danny gets an audition for a supporting role in a crime drama. He books it. It's not a leading man part, it's not the career-defining role he lost, but it's a start, a real start. Over the next 5 years, Carradine recommends Danny for 7 different projects. 4 of them work out. Danny builds a steady career, not as a star, but as a respected character actor who gets to play complex roles instead of stereotypes. In 1982, Danny writes Carradine a letter. Thanks him, not just for the professional help, but for the night in the diner. For showing him that anger could be transformed into action, that blame could become responsibility, that enemies could become allies if both people were willing to be honest about uncomfortable truths. The letter ends. You were right about one thing. The industry is changing, and when my son grows up, Maybe he won't have to choose between being authentic and being successful. Thank you for helping make that possible. Carradine keeps the letter in his meditation room. When he struggles with guilt about cultural appropriation, about his place in the industry, about whether his success has meaning, he reads it. It reminds him that sometimes the most important thing you can do with an opportunity you don't deserve is use it to create opportunities for people who do. That night in the diner, David Carradine could have defended himself, could have explained the business, could have dismissed a drunk actor's complaints. Instead, he listened. He admitted fault. He took responsibility, and he acted. 1 conversation, 3 hours, 2 cups of coffee and a business card. It didn't fix the system. It didn't erase the problems with representation in Hollywood. It didn't make David Carradine's casting retroactively appropriate, but it saved Danny Chen from drowning in his own anger. It gave him a path forward. It showed him that progress sometimes comes from unexpected allies, from people willing to admit their own complicity and work to change it. And it taught Carradine something he'd been searching for through years of meditation and study. That true wisdom isn't about having the right to teach. It's about knowing when you need to learn. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is sit across from someone whose life you've accidentally damaged and say, "You're right. What can I do to help?" That's what happened at 2 a.m. in a diner on Sunset Boulevard. Not a fight, not an argument, not a confrontation. A conversation that changed 2 lives and proved that accountability, offered honestly, can transform anger into alliance. The question isn't whether you deserve your opportunities. The question is what you do with them once you have them.